What do you think is more powerful? Do you think it's the manufactured consent, the media, the need? I mean, as members of Congress, you have to get elected every 2 years. You're basically constantly campaigning. Do you think that it's more, is the power more in that approval rating, that constant need to campaign, the manufactured consent, or do you think it's a bigger pull, the money, lobbying, dollars, campaign contributions? Which one do you think it is?
Well, it's all the above.
Yeah.
When members get to Congress, they go to the respective Republican headquarters and Democratic headquarters. They're given a book of political action committees about this thick, and and they dial for dollars at the campaign headquarters in between votes. You don't see many members of Congress participating in debates because they are riveted to this system, which requires them to raise millions of dollars in a relatively short period of time from interest groups who will extract their pound of flesh before they give money, or expect it once they've given money. And more, these interest groups are aligned with a military industrial complex, the kind that Eisenhower warned about in his farewell speech. Uh, this system at this point is a rotten system that needs to be challenged. And I want to go back to Congress to challenge it from within, to let the American people know about the ongoing waste, the fraud, the abuse, the lies that passes for governance, and to do it in a way that doesn't take that doesn't cause uh, my colleagues to feel that I'm attacking them personally, because I've never taken that approach,
Hmm.
but to challenge the underlying premises of our governance so that people start to think differently about the approach that we should be taking as a nation. Because right now, America, more than anything, seems to exist for prosecuting wars around the world. And that was not the purpose of our nationhood. It
Right.
should not be our purpose.
Right. Yeah, it always boggles my mind why we still have allies at all. Why anybody still continues to, like the UK, the Europe, Australia. You see these countries, and they basically do whatever the United States asks them to do and takes the stance that the U.S. asks them to take. I mean, we've seen some slight deviation from that, even just yesterday with the UN Security Council vote. The UK actually voted for the ceasefire rather than abstaining, which they'd often just kind of sit there and abstain. The US would veto something and every other country would vote for something. The UK would sit there meekly and just abstain. Like they're controlled. It's like the United States is the mean girl with the popular crowd. And if you don't do it the United States once, you're going to end up smeared and you're going to have no friends. You're going to be sitting by yourself at the lunch table. I mean, I don't understand the pull that the United States still seems to have on so many of these other countries. What is it? I mean, you'd think that they would look at us and say, "You guys are just warmongers. You propagate war everywhere, especially after the Iraq invasion debacle and this mess in Afghanistan, and then to continue to support genocide, supporting Israel at all costs." I mean, why do you think we even? What is it that is the control mechanism the United States has on these other nations?
Well, first of all, the status of the United States in the world uh, has been maintained because of our economic power, because of our ability to influence energy markets, because of our military, because of our diplomatic position globally. But Kim, I think we're at an inflection point here, where a long series of usurpation of the rights of people in other nations, um, of the um, of the creation of multinational organizations whose influence have been made to crush some countries, to lower wages, to abandon human rights, and workers' rights, and environmental quality principles. The U.S. Corporations began there. And as all of these, as there's a confluence of events, we're seeing, including more war, people are starting to ask the question, well, why? China has moved towards economic development while the U.S. was investing in war.
Yeah.
They built the Belt and Road. They have helped other countries build their economy. And China has also begun investing as of late in its military as well because of the threats over Taiwan. The United States, in its prosecution of war, both um, behind the scenes and more upfront and funding wars, has created a coalition over the years of Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Iran, and other nations under BRICS Plus that is leading to a new trading bloc, is leading to de-dollarization, is leading to a profound shift in the relationship between among nations and between the United States and other nations. So we are at an inflection point.
Yeah.
And I think that we will find that the preeminence of our country is declining because of horrible decisions that have been made by people in Washington for very narrow interests, for perhaps ideological reasons, perhaps megalomaniacal impulses, but for whatever, the United States has learned that we cannot maintain our position in the world by fomenting war, by having 800 bases everywhere, by trying to tell people it's our way or the highway. We are no longer a nation above nations. We must move to a kind of cooperation where we become a nation among nations so that each nation has to take on the responsibilities of their security, of their economy, and all of these trade structures that were created that disempowered the legislators and their ability to represent their people are going to have to be reviewed.
Hmm.
We're going to need a new security structure. The U.S. has to try to rebuild its relationship with the world, and you can't do it with the force of arms.
No, and or even just the idea of sanctions. I mean, those that hasn't worked anywhere either. We've been sanctioning Cuba for how long? It hasn't worked at all. And really, any of the sanctions haven't worked except to keep people poor,
Well,
hoping that.
well, the sanctions against Russia blew up. Russia found other paths
Right.
to buttress their economy.
It worked for them because suddenly, especially when they were saying to all these American companies and Western companies, "You're gonna have to get out of Russia," there was a fire sale for all of these companies, basically, and the Russian suddenly Russian industry boomed. All these Russian-owned, these they became Russian-owned businesses, and so they boomed. I mean, it was just a backfiring, like you mentioned, that.
I just step away for a second. The presumption for many years and various quarters is that the people who are in office always know what they're doing. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. Not. They don't know often anything more than anyone else.
Right.
And so they guess their way through very complex situations where inevitably it's the use of either economic power or military power or arm twisting result in temporary victories, long-term losses, alienation from other countries. America must take a different direction so that we can meet the needs of our people here at home. I mean,
Yeah.
how is it that we have so many people who are not able to afford childcare for their children? You have childcare used to cost like 7% of a family budget. Now it's like 24%.
Yeah.
The cost of housing a few years ago, The median for median income was 21% of median income. Now it's, I think, about 41%. The American people are having a great deal of difficulty. They're drowning in debt. You take automobile and credit. Right now, I think the average American is paying over 6,500 a year just for the interest on their automobiles and mortgages and
Yeah.
excuse me, automobiles and credit. And with respect to the mortgages, it's I think it's over 6,700 a year. I'm wondering how people survive between housing, childcare, healthcare, having a car. I think the truth is that there are a lot of Americans hanging on by their fingernails, while our country roams the world looking for dragons to slay.
Yeah.
I, I mean, take care of things here at home.
Right, right. What do you think so when you go to Congress, you said that when people get there, they're given a book, they have to start doing dial for dollars, and that's pretty much what they spend their time doing. Is there a way around that? What could somebody be doing instead? And I mean, Congress is the least effective branch of government. Don't seem to do much except squabble with one another. It was amazing to me that they rallied together so quickly just recently to ban TikTok. That was like the one thing that otherwise it's can't get a budget passed, can't get anything else done. But TikTok, we can try to ban TikTok. What is it? What could be done differently when a person gets there? I always wonder how people like AOC, who went in there bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, thinking she was going to make some real drastic change and infiltrate the Democratic Party and oust Mama Bear Nancy Pelosi, and now she's just one of them. I mean, what happens? What's that process?
I can't speak to any one member, but I can say this, that uh, when people get to Congress, there are tremendous pressures to conform every day. Uh, it's the House of Representatives in particular is like a big high school, and you have your cliques and people talk to each other. But the one thing you don't want to be is shut out, to not be able to talk to people, to have people ignore you, because there's a price to pay for that. Personally, people just, it makes the job a rotten job if nobody will talk to you. Now, you don't achieve sociability just by agreeing with everyone, and certainly AOC doesn't do that. But there is within political parties. Political parties are a macro exercise in group think,
Hmm.
and um, it's like a magic show. You step into this box, and suddenly things change, and there's a different mentality, different psychology created, and suddenly one might find oneself in a position where you do something that prior to going to Congress, you'd say, I'd never go for that. I'd never vote for that. But it just happened. And all the votes, by the way, when you go to House of Representatives, all the votes are on a board, looks like the stock market, with all the companies there,
Hmm.
and what happens is it's a green light if you vote yes, a red light if you vote no, an amber light if you don't want to take a position. People see how each other votes. They they that's a way of organizing consensus. Oh wait, you know, my friend in the next district voted this way, and what should I do? It's a very human thing on one hand, but on the other hand, this drive towards consensus can be destructive as well. People
Hmm.
just find themselves going along and not wanting to challenge the crowd. It's not fun to do that. I mean, I've done that. I can tell you, it's not a form of entertainment. But the but people in Congress aren't any different than anybody else back home. Everybody's trying to figure their way. How does this work? What's the best thing for the country? Unfortunately, a lot of the decisions that are being made as late don't work out that well for America
Right.
and for the American people.